you have some ideas in the business settings. So for example, if you are having a theory of a business failure in the business stock company, so there's you find out in a startup, you find a company, the business is a failure. So such as like a new online retailer for selling folding bikes. Folding bikes is a trend. After the COVID, people started buying folding bikes, especially in Europe. And then the retailer, as an online retailer, as a startup, thinking about, it's a failure in my business startup. So what could be the problem? They start to think about, do I have a very poor web design? Or do I have some fault in my product design that people may have very negative feedback about my product, or there's no review, they don't want to bother, nothing special. So, or I don't have enough sales staff to explain, to promote my idea, my product, or explain how my product could be useful, so-called folding bikes. Or we don't have enough investment in terms of production line. So sometimes they say, okay, we will purchase and deliver to the needs, and sometimes the delivery take about 3 months, and who want to buy the product, they will end for 3 months. Probably think about how quick, and so-called the investment into logistic, investment into the manufacturing. So the actual failure of business can be explained or examined by understanding the interrelation between this factor. So this is a kind of theory you are interested in looking at. So that could be something in terms of in business setting. You start to think about, okay, to do with communication. It could to do with the product design innovation, or to do with a human resource, the sales part, the sales team, sales force, or some financial factor. So several things could be happening here. So there's not directly a theory-oriented situation, and you find it's difficult. However, you probably start to look into, okay, well, we're looking for the profits, we're looking for the managerial level, but we can't find a way to generalize what we look into. Then we probably think about what could be the variables here. So if we're using online retailer, we probably looking for the variable, what could be the variables to affect the outcome, which is the profit, or managerial, which means sales management. So how can we relate to sometimes the managerial to do is, do we have the right IT people? Do we have a right IT management skill? And then we will be able to think about how can we generalize the information, the condition, the settings that we can explain. So this is sometimes you could be thinking about, I don't have a specific theory, so you probably consider theory in use condition. So we start to look into what could be the variables. Sometimes you don't know what theory you are going to tackle because you don't have sufficient knowledge. Start to looking for variable, using variable as a kind of keywords to look into related theory. And then you look into the theory, possibly to help you think about, that theory works. Or the variable may be something further we can use. And then
okay, I found this on the web for works or livable, maybe something for that.
And then we can look into, okay, we have variable, but what could we mean variable? So variable could be dependent variable and independent variable. And this is a terminology I would like you to pay attention to, because in all the research, we generally using terminology as a kind of, it could be a construct, it could be a variable. So sometimes the variable, instead of we look into, what could be the impact factor, what could be antecedents, or what could be the outcome, we possibly would simplify, say, what could be dependent variable? So dependent variable is a variable that forms the focus of the research. What's the outcome? The independent variable is about the variable that acts or predicts the dependent variable. So for example, earlier we mentioned about here, for in a business setting, we find a business failure that could be to do with the website design, could be faulty communication issues or the IT factors, and or innovation or the staff training or the so-called the capability of the staff member or the financial investment, something, etc. And then we can say these could be our independent variable because these are the factors we are going to predict what could be the outcome in terms of the profit, in terms of the managerial level. So we can say, okay, the independent variable is to do with what could be the issue trigger or predict the dependent variable. So we would say, okay, poor web design, poor products innovation would affect the outcome of selling, so we don't have profit. So here would be something that we would look into the literature to look in what could be additional literature that could be looking to the dependent and independent variable. So sometimes you may observe or something you have already known in the business setting, like what I mentioned earlier on this online retailer bicycle example. So online retailer bicycle example is something about website innovation, etc. But something else you could probably predict. It could predict about, okay, it could be environmental issue. The customer doesn't have a purchasing money because it could be economical downturn, they have an economic crisis, or that could be something else. So you are not looking for the company operational issue, you're looking for more environmental factor. So sometimes it would be better for you to have a look into all kind of factor, and then you start to think about what could be the key elements you want to select, or you think in the literature they said these are intertwined and you choose them. Or sometimes you can relate that variable to this variable, dependent to the dependent variable. There's some theory to explain there. So in that sense, so that would be a kind of a diagram you can create. How independent variable affect the dependent variable. So there are more examples here. Customer loyalty affect the sales performance. So sometimes the sales, marketing sales, they want to gain the customer, retain the customer by the customer loyalty. So they think about if a customer is loyal, then we can consider to sell. So loyalty is important. Or for marketing campaign. So if we have a good campaign, so how can we promote our, maybe in the food industry, they want to make sure we sell the product and the product is a healthy product. So how can we make a good campaign to let the consumer attitude to healthy eating? So sometimes we want to see how can this staff member can commit to their company. So organizational commitment, that's the outcome. Some company are interested, or management, the HR are interested about organizational commitment by their staff member. So probably think about leadership or supervisor support, how they get involved. Or some company, they're looking for how can we make sure we have a task cooperation, so project team. Or sometimes inter-company, they have a project, they need to perform some tasks like create new products or generate new service, like in a joint venture situation. So they may have thinking about, we are going to, if it's a joint venture, they probably have a conflict, and what could be constructive conflict to affect the task operation. And then there's some people look into the attitude towards using technology. So they will think about this. There could be why people refuse to using online shopping. Maybe they have no trust about the security, online security, because they don't trust the technology. So that could be some kind of data security or using technology. And sometimes this attitude toward using is you probably have some idea through the market research, some basic market research. Sometimes the people say, I don't like to using mobile for shopping. I prefer using computer because I don't trust the mobile security. Or sometimes people say, I'm not sure because online things. I always say for the security, I always reject cookie. So because why I reject cookie? Because I don't want to the data carry on saving cookie and promote some advertisement, because I feel my privacy has been invaded. So this could be all reason. So this is another example. What could be independent variable affect the dependent variable? And that, of course, you can see there could be, in the sales performance, there could be multiple independent, not just single one. But this is just an idea to show you what could be independent and what could be dependent variable. So therefore, we talk about the theory, we talk about different type of variable, and then we probably, it come to us, so how is related to the research process? So as you probably understand, research process is about systematic. So this is a way of showing systematic. We bring some introduction. What are we looking at? What is the research context? What could be the situation, the business situation? What could be kind of everyone understand the business situation, understand the company issue, understand the environmental challenge, and then what could be our research questions? And then we bring in what are the literature are we going to investigate? What kind of literature are we going to explore? What kind of theory that we are going to incorporate? And then what are the methodology, which is what kind of method are we going to collect the data? And then what kind of results we can analyze, or what kind of results and findings then we can do, and what kind of discussion based on our analysis outcome that we can discuss. And then what's the conclusion in terms of benefit to the company, managerial implication, or the theory, that's something the theory here explain, but in terms of in that context, what could be further, or the depth that can explain further. So these are the systematic to show how the company, when they perform research, they can come with the conclusion to benefit the company. So in terms of literature, as I mentioned here, going to summarize, we are going to look into what could be dependent, what could be independent variables, and how these two variables interrelated. As earlier I mentioned about, you need to look in the theory that have interrelationship, or some kind of theory can explain some phenomenon of a situation. So you have this kind of variable involved. And then, therefore, you start to look into, are we able to have some research question that need to be answered? So what kind of methodology I need to use so I'll be able to answer my research question through the literature I've been doing the study. So this is kind of a typical research process here. So here is another, there's some kind of a statement. They talk about what is a theory. So theory, it could be a accumulated body of knowledge written by acknowledged experts. So you can go to a lot of literature, some kind of people specializing in certain theory. So when you start to look into the journal articles, you start to realize, the person specialized in B2B, the person specialized in consumer behavior, the person only focus on relationship. Start to looking for the person. And then when that person, you think about, well, I find a paper by this person that publishing this journal relate to this subject, maybe I can investigate further about the person, and then dig out all the study from that person. So I will have a better idea what the person in that expertise is like. You go to the hospital, you go to a specialized, and the specialized focus on dermatology or gynecology or something like that. So it's like an expert special tackle a specific area of research. And then it's something you just not thinking about, what variable I'm going to tackle. It will probably give you an idea. Maybe I should look into the person, and the person will give you a bigger picture of all the theory that the person has used in the same area of research interest I'm looking into. And therefore it saved my a lots of effort try to dig out tons of the paper. It could be using a person to dig out the paper from the person, and then it's like a linkage from one person to another person to lead to have a better idea. The theory also the state of art concept and innovation. So it's also a state of art. Sometimes you already say the theory already explained, so I don't need to make so much effort to explain. Like a social exchange theory I use is talk about cost and reward. So it's a body of work where the inconsequential and misleading idea can be filtered out. Sometimes you have a lot of idea, but you don't know how to do the filtering. So the theory help you to think about, okay, if I'm going to focus on the social exchange theory, maybe I just need to tackle the issue within that theory. Instead of I want to look into environmental, I want to look into technological, I want to look into political, I look into economical, etc., etc., etc. You have to, because we talk about research is specific. I mentioned about in our last talk. Specific is systematic. So we need to focus. So sometimes you have so many ideas, but some idea it's not suitable in your research interest. It could be another research project you can look into. So when you're doing your research project, it would be also useful to know what should I focus that can be make it so specific, and then I can bring out the uniqueness of the outcome, and the outcome can specifically tackle that research question instead of the outcome is so general, can tackle this a bit and that, and then everyone already know, yeah, we know that already, so what? So that filtering out certain information is a way to get you go beyond so what. And also represent the knowledge that should view critically, reject them, incompatible with the practice. So sometimes it would be the theory will help you to have idea what could be rejected, what could be irrelevant because they have other issue involved. Sometimes you can say it's not accepted because we don't have that kind of condition. Maybe sometimes they mention about, okay, we want to have more stronger relationship, we need to look into trust, we need to look into satisfaction, we need to look into commitment, and sometimes we need to look into empathy, and sometimes say I don't think empathy is relevant to our situation because. And sometimes in that kind of situation, you can say, okay, I may be not including in that variable because you can have some theory to explain and to help you to filter out certain variable or certain variable that could be not compatible with the practice that's relevant to your independent variable or relevant to your whole context. So sometimes you could add interest, intellectual stimulation to a project. Sometimes that's why I mentioned about the depth of the outcome, the analysis, the discussion you found that would be unique in that context. And sorry, I need to go back. And also it could be a model against which a life business process can be evaluated. So sometimes you could be saying, yeah, this is a business process that we need to evaluate, but it's a model we shouldn't evaluate anyway. So you have a new perspective. We talk about being a manager. If we work in a company for a long time, we probably our brain has been implanted in a way we see things as we assume how things it should work, and that kind of assumption will constrain our creativity. And sometimes a theory will help you to think about, I know how it works, but I never thought in that way. So that could stimulate your another way of thinking. So a lot of EMBA people have encountered, they like to listen to the theory because they say they know the practical side, they know how it works, but they say their brain has been formulated to think in the way of companies should do, so therefore they can't be creative or they can't have a new perspective. So the theory brings a new perspective. So that could be adding new interest or intellectual stimulation to the project. So it could be how can we execute? So sometimes you think about, okay, we just do the survey, we need to do survey data, and then, but in terms of doing survey, you probably have a theory. The thing about it's more than a survey in that theory. It could be something else. It could be interview, could be a case study, could be observation, could be experiment to know psychology, how people think in their mind. So that would be the answer to provide. Okay, that we would mention about that. So here, what is information and literature and research? It helps you to guide a manager how to make a decision. Again, make a decision. So we could be careful what could be our primary data, which means what we gather. Firstly, an idea from the literature, from some our observation, and what could be secondary data that sometimes we went to study, and then something companies say, how about I give you my company current products, the release, the handout, the campaign, etc. You probably can investigate better about how my campaign works in terms of current market brochure, the salespeople, what could be their presentation, blah blah, some archive in the company, or how can we make progress in the past 5 years, the archive to see the progress of our product campaign development. And sometimes it will happen as a longitudinal study because it probably investigates like a before COVID and after COVID. There could be a different way of doing. Sometimes before COVID, you need to go for a conference, set out a venue, interact with the customer directly. But after COVID, you're probably using digital conference, webinar, etc., and how they present. So they could be use a video as an archive for you, as a secondary data to support in addition to the primary data you're investigating. So this is something further we will talk in our future in terms of the data collection part. So the other thing further for you to pay attention to, what could be the research data? So research data, they have a different kind of research data. We could say that could be quantitative, that could be qualitative data. So what does it mean, quantitative data? Quantitative data means a form of numbers you generally can gather from, survey question. I'm sure you have experienced a lot of survey questions about scale 1 to 5, satisfaction, or agree to a disagree, or happiness, or high satisfaction level, low satisfaction level, scale 1 to 5, scale 1 to 10, scale 1 to 7, or etc., etc. And sometimes you may have qualitative data. Sometimes they need a word. Say, maybe give me a 3 keyword, how you explain the products. And so sometimes you give some people a constraint, a word limit to choose the quality data, or sometimes that you can explain in a sentence to have some people using open question to help you to answer. So in the questionnaire, what do you think your company need to improve to make you feel that you can commit to the company better? So that could be company improvement and your commitment, and sometimes it's open-ended questions. And sometimes it could be an observation, say, maybe you can look into the video and what you have observed and how do you feel? Some people look into the psychology. Sometimes that you watch a video of advertisements and then say, what do you feel? Do you want to buy? Why may you want to buy? Sometimes it's a video. And sometimes other available information gathered from the internet. So I remember one of my colleagues in the past, they do the how the words on the feedback from the online product feedback, product reviews affect the purchasing interest. So they just, for example, the traveling website. And sometimes the travel agent, sometimes you have a consumer or feedback and say the travel agent is trustworthy, the travel agent provide lots of the information, the travel agents provide a lot after sales service, they are very hospitable, they provide a better tour guide, blah blah blah. So sometimes they just list a kind of internet information from the review. So these could be all kind of research data people able to collect or people can do for the research method. So here is a very general idea we still talk about general here, about research data. We talk about, what is a qualitative, what's quantitative, and we are talking about research process, systematic logic, but also we talk about the theory, what could be already existing theory. Sometimes you may not know the theory, you may know some variable, using the variable as a keywords, and sometimes using the variable, the keyword, as a kind of way to looking for more paper. In terms of looking for more paper, you can using specific researcher in the same area and help you to look into what theory has adopted in the past. And all through this process, if you conduct research as a manager, you will be able to have a better idea. Do I cover everything, or should I cover more, or is I miss out something if I'm looking for relationship with the customer, or if I'm manager of HR, I'm looking for relationship with my employee or commitment from my employee, etc. That is a way of showing how you would be able to using information and knowledge in terms of doing your research. So the next part, we would further about how the manager relate to research and what kind of type of research they are using, or how could this research can be useful. Should we go for scientific or other type of research? So we are going to talk about different type of research. We are going to talk about manager, how they relate to the research in our next slides and our talk. All right, I hope this explanation about the theory related to the literature, research process, and some idea about research data, it would be able to help you understand better about information and knowledge, what are the key in the research.